right. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Commissioner Kennedy,
Here.
Commissioner Corral,
Present.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Here.
Chairman Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Say,
Here.
Commissioner Romero,
Present.
Commissioner Sterling.
Here.
We have everybody.
This time, anyone in the member of the public can address the commission with anything not on the agenda tonight. There's no one in the seat, so we have nothing on the consent calendar, so going to general business.
So first, before I get into the item, I just want to say thank you all for accommodating the special meeting this evening for these code updates. And also, we have a guest city attorney this evening, so we have Robert Rodier Potter from BBK is the voice in the sky this evening because Scott Chapsey's had another engagement. So just wanted to introduce you and let you know that he's here with us this evening.
Hello.
So the item before you this evening is two proposed zoning text amendments to Chapter 9.5, Article 5, and Article 6 of the Title 9, which is the planning and zoning section of the municipal code. These two amendments are in response to programs that were adopted as part of the 2022 general plan housing element. As I mentioned in the staff report, the housing element is a state mandated section of our general plan. And the housing implementation plan essentially has specific action items for the city to work on in order to make sure that we're meeting our obligations under state law related to housing, part of which is production of housing units as allocated as part of the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, or RHNA. So this is going to be the first of a series of kind of code amendments that are going to come to you over the next few months. We figured we'd start with the ones that are the most time sensitive and then work our way into the others. So tonight, the first item would be related to Program 14 of the implementation plan, which is accessory dwelling units. So every year, in the last several years, the state legislature has adopted new and updated regulations related to accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. So the primary goal of these amendments is essentially to get us current with all of the state law updates that have happened over the last year. I've given you a rundown of all of the specific items that have been redlined in our code, but just to highlight some of the ones that were bigger changes. We have clarified how you would measure the height of an ADU for construction of new units or additions. As you're aware, our height definition in the municipal code is sometimes a little difficult to apply, so it is nice to have a more objective standard specifically for ADUs. We've also clarified the number of units that you're allowed to have on properties via state law. Those have been a bit up for debate on the interpretation over the last couple years, but the state has adopted clear guidance on what's allowed now. On single-family properties, you're allowed to have one attached accessory dwelling unit, one detached accessory dwelling unit, and a junior accessory dwelling unit. Yes. So again, if you're able to comply with all of the development standards to construct those units. And then on multifamily properties, there's the ability to have up to, I think it's 8 detached accessory dwelling units, and also the ability to have additional accessory dwelling units made out of existing space inside of an existing building, as long as you don't exceed the number of units that are already permitted there. Of course, all of this in Avalon is limited by whether you have appropriate water allocation from Southern California Edison to construct new units. Yeah, so this does not supersede that utility requirement because that is a critical utility. But Just that is kind of what is on the books is what could be allowable. As far as the, we also proposed some updates to our objective design standards for accessory dwelling units, mostly to essentially overall to either clarify or lessen some of the requirements of what was required before. For instance, we've clarified window and door placement on units to ensure privacy with surrounding properties. We have added a requirement that the slope of the roof of a new detached building has to match the primary building on the property, mostly for consistency of design. And we have reduced the landscaping requirements to match whatever is required by the underlying zone. And on that, to give you an idea of what was allowed before, there used to be requirements like you have to have a tree of X size and this many shrubs, and there were quite a lot of things that you were required to provide, but we're recommending a staff to reduce that to the underlying zone requirement for a few reasons. One, landscaping requires a water allocation. Two, there's not a whole lot of room on most properties that we know in town for that kind of landscaping. And three, because of that, the landscaping requirement could conflict with fire safety access to a property in terms of the requirements for keeping clear area around structures from a fire safety perspective. So the underlying zone usually has kind of small requirements in terms of maybe a 3-foot wide planter at the front property line, something of that nature. But we did not want to make it more burdensome for somebody to build an accessory dwelling unit than a regular unit. So the complete amendment language was included in the draft resolution for this item, and I also included a strike-through red line version as well if you wanted to see the specific areas where updates were made. Update number 2 that has been proposed is for program 15 of the housing element, which is called adequate sites for lower income households on non-vacant and vacant sites previously identified. So during this last housing element cycle, the city carried over its housing opportunity site from the previous cycle into this one. Housing opportunity sites are essentially sites that are mandated by state law for the city to identify that could potentially have the capacity to construct the number of units that are required as part of our RHNA housing allocation. So the city of Avalon during this last cycle was assigned to try to produce up to 27 new housing units during this 2021 to 2029 housing cycle. So the one site, which is located on Tremont Street, was identified as under the existing zoning regulations having the ability to potentially construct that many units should the property owner propose a project there. And the owner of this property is the Island Company. In compliance with state law, this code amendment would further clarify that that identified housing opportunity site, should the owner both propose at least 20% of the units be affordable to low and very low income housing or low or very low income household levels, and also be at least 30 dwelling units an acre, they would qualify for a program under state law that would allow for streamlined review of the project. So essentially the discretionary review that would usually take place for something like this before the Planning Commission could be waived as long as they meet all the development requirements of that program. So the goal of this amendment is just to update the low and moderate housing zoning district to specifically call out this property and that they could qualify for that program should an application come in the future. We do not have any current application for development on this site. The property owner has been informed that we're making this update and they will have it available to them in the future. And they have not provided us any comment at this point on the amendment. This one is also included in the draft resolution, and the strike-through text has been provided. Staff is recommending or asking the Planning Commission to make a recommendation of approval to the City Council regarding the proposed text amendments. We have made findings related to compliance with the city's general plan, not just the housing element, but the land use element, and have made findings for compliance for categorical exemptions from CEQA under sections 15183A and 15601B3. I am here for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Questions for staff?
I have one.
Yes.
So in regards to the Island Company property, this does not require them, it doesn't change the zoning of that property in any way, shape, or form.
It does not change the zoning of the property. It does not change the development standards for the property. It's just an additional, I think the state's idea is it's meant to be an additional enticement.
We're dangling a carrot.
Yes.
So if the Island Company chooses to move that way, they can, but they're not. So if they decide later on to build a 50-story hotel there, they can, as long as they met development standards.
This does not obligate the property to be
Okay.
developed for affordable housing. It is just another opportunity for them should they choose to incorporate that into a project.
Perfect.
But if they did decide to build a 50-story something, they have to allocate
Oh, yeah.
20%, right, for the low-income
Sure.
families?
So the city already has a citywide inclusionary housing requirement that 20% of units for new residential developments have to be provided at the moderate or low income level, with that mix of units and income levels being approved by the city as part of the entitlements for our project. So this is essentially meant to be an enticement to get you to, you get a streamlined process if you're willing to do this, but it's not an obligation.
Perfect.
But they still would have to get a water allocation.
They would still need a water allocation. Nothing about this, again, supersedes that requirement.
Well, I get the effort that this city staff has gone through to comply with state regulation. I totally get that. I also recognize that the state requirements are not going to solve our state's housing problem. But this is all a feel-good thing. I just was making certain that we are not dictating to a landowner what they can and cannot do with their property in the future, particularly when we don't own the land. That was my only concern.
No more than the existing zoning
Yep.
would require them to
Perfect.
develop.
Perfect. I'm happy.
Two questions. One on the maximum size of ADUs requirements. I kind of got lost in the language, but it looks like that last sentence in parentheses A says ADUs, 800 square feet is the minimum, or is the minimum maximum?
Yeah, so we've not changed anything this go around, but for an ADU, so that's either attached or detached, for a one-bedroom, the maximum size is 800 square feet. A two-bedroom or more would be 1,000 square feet. If somebody is able to meet all of the requirements for the development standards, the city cannot limit to anyone to less than 800 square feet, unless they're not meeting something about like FAR, the other requirements in this section. And then for a JADU, which is its own category, the maximum size is 500 square feet, and that's dictated by state law.
And is there a... But can the requirements kick it down to 300 feet? That's why
Yeah,
I
so
kinda
the
got
idea
lost.
is no.
Okay.
We cannot require anyone to go smaller than 800 square feet unless they're like not meeting building code
Okay, and
requirements.
then in a junior, 500.
It's 500.
Okay, good. That's what I was hoping it
Yes,
said. I just
and then the
couldn't tell.
minimum, the minimum size for either of those categories is essentially dictated by building code minimum size for occupancy, which is
Okay.
70 to 100 square feet maybe. But yeah, those are the maximums,
So the maximum's 800, not 750?
800.
Okay, I thought it was 750 when it first,
It probably was.
Okay.
It's changed quite a bit over the last several years.
Okay.
and so, sorry, go ahead. No, I thought you were finished.
I've got it's a different
ahead.
issue, so is that okay?
No, okay, yeah, so regarding this, so for some reason, I thought, because these came what? I don't know how many years ago they came, was a state requirement, but I thought for some reason it had to do with square footage or max no more than 750, so that's not, of the original home.
It could have been.
Oh, okay, so this is all updated.
This is all updated.
Okay.
And again, we're not changing anything about those size limits as part of this update, but that is currently what
Okay.
is on
It
the
doesn't
books.
matter how big the home, primary home? No, okay.
It does not. And then,
Okay.
Yes.
Question number 2 is the parking exemptions. It says no parking is required when, and little a, is the ADU is located within a 1/2 mile walking distance of public transit. But then it says as defined in 95603, and then when I go to that, it says buses, trains, subways. But it sounds like when we had the bus system that wasn't well used, you would be exempt from parking for an ADU and a JDU. But now that we have Coast that is used, those don't have fixed stops that you would have to provide parking.
Yeah, that's like an Uber.
Right. So to me, the problem is we have a better transit system, and now we're requiring parking. That's assuming I'm reading,
I think this
that's
is-
how you would interpret that.
I think you're correct. This is actually something that Scott Shapsies and I discussed while we were reviewing the amendments is, state law, like you said, has handed down to us very specific criteria for what is a high quality transit stop, and Avalon does not appear to meet any of those criteria.
Right. But if we went back to the bus system that people didn't use, that would meet the criteria.
Potentially.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. It seems counter-logical, is that we add the language to make it that Coast, or whatever the generic term for that, would fit as one of these exemptions for parking. And I'm assuming the state doesn't mind if we don't require parking for.
Correct. The
ADUs.
city can make whatever requirements it wants regarding parking. These are the state minimum requirements to exempt,
Right.
since a lot of jurisdictions do have very stringent parking requirements that in a lot of cases they don't want to waive unless they're required to.
Right, which isn't us normally, I don't think. Especially, if, an ADU or a JDU, if you had to provide parking in addition to converting a 4-bedroom into two-bedroom units, or something like that, that would make it really difficult to find a parking space, additional parking space.
It would, but it would also be difficult too because it's an address, so they're allowed to have a vehicle.
So
Correct.
this is actually interesting. So currently, the vehicle permit section of the code does not allow issuing.
And that we made, right?
Our vehicle regulations for stickers do not allow ADUs to get
So then,
Another irony that we're requiring a parking space
Right.
when they're not allowed to have a car.
So the last time that vehicle discussion happened.
So anyway, you see
Yeah,
where I'm going with
I
this.
do. So the last time there was a discussion with vehicles, last few months at council, in terms of updating our vehicle sticker regulations, I think there was some direction given from council that they would like to see stickers extended to ADU occupants. I think in part because a lot of them are being built in parts of the city like the Hills and stuff where having a vehicle can be very important in terms of the functionality of those units. We have not brought that back to them, but that was direction they gave us. So if you would like to give some recommendations, that's what we're here for tonight, regarding whether you would like us to look into, or if you'd like to recommend adding an exemption, some exemption language to potentially allow.
After the public hearing, yeah,
Yeah.
I'll do that. I just wanted to clarify the issue. Yeah.
But in terms of what's being proposed this evening for the ADU section, would you like to, if you would like to include something in your motion to update this, you could do that as well. Because this will ultimately be a recommendation to council for their consideration.
And I'll make that argument after we hear from the public.
But isn't there already something on the books like that you can go to the vehicle board and ask for an additional sticker for a house if you show a need for it? Isn't there already something like?
Well, this is a specific regulation.
I know, I'm just curious, but they were talking about like people living on the hills, allowing them to get a sticker for it. I think there already is a way to get a sticker if you go and plead your case in front of the vehicle board.
I mean, there is a way of doing it. I
Yeah.
don't know that the vehicle hearing officer would do it, since it's not allowed. You would have to then appeal it to city council.
Or we could do something like, because we all do know we do have a vehicle, parking issues. Maybe exemptions only in the hills and not on the flats, like.
But part of the problem too is where some of these ADUs are being built, they don't even have street access. So,
Like Upper Terrace is, they're-
Yeah, we're a special place over here in Catalina, so it's just, it's like you said, makes no sense.
Yeah, so the way it is written right now, it would appear that nowhere in the city would meet exception 2A. As you noted, there are some other exceptions that are also listed that we have pursuant to state law. But I agree that it seems like there's a larger discussion that might be had at some point, specifically regarding vehicles for ADUs, the current prohibition is in the code to give them stickers, and whether there need to be changes to that to give all those residents in those units more of an opportunity to get a vehicle registered.
Questions?
And it could be that perhaps that discussion might be had rather than including that in the Title IX, that those recommended changes could be done in the title, which 3, 4, I can't remember which title it is, that has the vehicle code regulations. If you want to have a discussion regarding like required parking or issuing.
Oh, separate, not the parking issue, but whether or not they should be allowed.
Yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Well, I feel like, the ADUs aren't allowed to have a vehicle attached to it. I don't think that they should be required to have a parking.
Which currently they would be required to have.
Exactly, so I think that that's something that we
one
need.
or the other, give them parking.
Yeah,
give 'em a
I
car,
think we take away the parking part if we're not changing the attachment of the vehicle.
Yeah, one or the other, right?
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, so a way to do that perhaps, and we can have this discussion when you're ready to have a motion, but a way to do that would maybe be to say that no on-site parking space is required unless there's a vehicle permit associated with that unit, which would potentially give if the council chooses to make those updates to allow them in the future, we wouldn't have to come back and change this section of the code to.
And I think that'd be good for us, because I don't want to be making that decision.
Yeah,
You know what
'cause
I'm saying?
I don't think we would want to add, I think that would be a requirement. If they went before and requested a vehicle, then off-street parking would probably be required, since it's an additional unit to an already
Right.
existing unit. So yeah, I think that's a good compromise.
So that could be a way to build this in so that the code is prepped for future discussion on this.
I have one question, Kelly. You indicated 800 square feet is the maximum for an ADU?
For a one-bedroom.
For a one-bedroom, okay. And is that coming, are you looking specifically at 9-5604, the approvals, the item 2? Is that's 2B there on 9-5604 2B? Total floor area is 800 square feet or smaller?
Correct.
Okay, could you, 9-5606, it has 850 and 1,000. How do those two sections work together?
Thank you. So the 800, thank you. So maximum is 850 for a studio or one bedroom. The 800 is specific to the city with the application of our FAR requirements, our setbacks. things of that nature, cannot use those particular development standards to reduce the unit any smaller than 800. So let's say that the FAR, maximum FAR for the property or floor area is 80% of lot size. We cannot use that requirement to make them build only a 200 square foot unit when they would be otherwise allowed to build 800.
And,
Or 850, as a minimum.
and so that's where I was a little confused too, because when I asked about 50% of the original dwelling,
Yeah.
and that says here on 9-5606 on number 2, an attached ADU that is created on a lot with an existing primary dwelling is further limited to 50% of the floor area of the existing primary dwelling.
Yeah, they're layered. It's all layered.
I'm just like,
So, like I said, we're not proposing to change any of that. Those
Yeah.
are the, we're meeting our obligations under state law there. But yeah, it certainly doesn't make for a straightforward read.
It does not.
And in 3, it also says it may require it to be less than 800 square feet, when you just said it wouldn't require it to be 800, less than 800 square feet.
It's the state, it's the government.
Smoke and mirrors, baby.
It's very confusing.
Okay.
None of those made sense.
Yeah.
Reading them, I was like, what?
But generally, 800
Is that generally 800 is the minimum, except in specific circumstances. Oh,
And I think it will be able to be within that, because everybody's doesn't have
it's
the
huge,
space,
right?
yeah.
But by Avalon standards, that's a pretty large
Yeah.
unit, even if it's small real estate-wise.
Open the public hearing. No one's here in the audience, so close the public hearing. Any discussion or motion?
I'd like to make a motion that would allow coast, or whatever the generic term is, to be added to the definition of transit suitable to not require a parking space. Even though I don't think we should connect it to cars. It sounds like that's what the group is thinking we should. I'm thinking housing a priority over cars or parking. And if you're going to make an error,
And if they want
but however,
transportation, then it would require parking.
right, that's what I hear, so
Yeah,
that's
I
going to
think-
be my
I think that's-
motion.
So, yeah,
Is that a clear enough motion? To approve everything as submitted with the one change, adding the idea that coast does meet the definition of public transit throughout the city.
Do we need to do both in the same motion?
Or two separate.
Or two separate?
It can all be part of the same motion, but what I'm just double checking real quick is the definition for like what counts as a transit stop might also be tied to a government code definition. So there might be.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if you could write the definition in such a way that it says coast has, for the sake of definition, coast can stop within 100 feet, or at least 100 feet intervals throughout all city streets. So therefore, that would be a designated stop. You know what I mean? It seems like there would be a way to,
I mean, I can tell you the funding for Coast is that it's required to be for public transportation. I mean, that's our
right, I
funding
mean,
for that entire program.
it seems like, you could come up with one or two different ways to make it fit the definition,
unless they're looking if they run on a scheduled time that at 9 o'clock.
which is the ultimate irony, is
Yeah.
those don't get used.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we would have to verify that we can make that
Or-
included as part of the public transit.
I guess another way to do it would be to add a separate criteria that's not public transit, but that is general transit or something else. Give it a different name and then make that also one of the exempts. Just have it as a totally separate exemption. There's the public transit exemption and then there's the coast exemption. So if it, one of those two. I think the spirit is correct, so I don't think the state would be upset.
No, and I think this is going to raise a flag for the state anyway, and then they're going to question it.
And then I think they would like the response.
I think they would like it once they understood it.
The temperature from HCD, Housing Community Development, which is the state agency that oversees ADU regulations, is it's always okay to waive parking requirements. They don't want to
Right.
see additional parking requirements in terms of like requiring more parking. They're always interested in seeing parking requirements shrink. So I think what you were saying would be in the spirit of generally what the direction is from the
Okay.
state.
So technically, it'll be a little bit of a pain, but
Yeah.
doable, I think.
Yes, I think so.
And this is
Okay,
just a
that's my
recommendation
motion.
to the city council anyways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we can look more into it before the council meeting.
So if that's your motion, I'll second it.
But you didn't say anything about the housing, the first one. We have to incorporate both of them into the emotion? Incorporate both.
Yeah, that, in addition to, I said, recommending adoption or approval to forward to city council all the suggestions, but also include the insertion of in such a way that parking's not required for,
Acknowledging its exemption from CEQA and so on.
yeah, et cetera.
So you would, just to clarify and summarize, you'd like to recommend the draft resolution as provided by staff with the additional recommendation that Coast be incorporated into the parking exemption language as something that can be considered as potentially as public transit to waive parking requirements.
And if they wanted a vehicle in addition to the application, then they would have to provide parking for it.
Off-street parking.
Off-street parking. Okay.
It'd just be for not a wet though, right?
Right.
Because if I have a blue sticker and I move in there, I still can park my car. You can't.
Right.
So. You can park anywhere. That's what I'm saying, so it doesn't.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay. Any more questions or discussion? Call for a vote, if not?
Vice Chair Kennedy,
Yes.
Commissioner Correll,
Yes.
Commissioner Hewitt,
Yes?
Chair Kathleen Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Say,
Yes.
Commissioner Romero,
Aye.
Commissioner Sterling.
Yes.
Robert, we have all ayes and the motion passes.
Any more business for,
Yeah, we just wanted to make some quick announcements about the scheduling for the meetings over the next couple of months. So again, like I said, thank you for making time for the special meeting this evening. We are still intending to have our regular meeting on September 17th this month as well. City Manager's Office is preparing some information that they would like to get recommendations, thoughts and recommendations on from Planning Commission regarding potential wait list options for the transient rental license program. Since, as you're aware, Council has approved with the TRL updates cap. So while we have some capacity to process the applications that have already been submitted up to this point, we are going to quickly end up in a situation where we'll have more applications than we do spots. So
So we were just looking, well, as long as we can keep that September 17th meeting on the books, we wanted to talk that through with you. We have some ideas to, mistakes maybe that we've learned from other wait lists that we have here in the city. We don't want to go down that path again, so we have some suggestions that we'd like to run past planning for discussion, and then also talk that through so we can make those recommendations to council.
yeah. And as for the, October, we are potentially going to be moving the October meeting. The regular meeting would usually be on October 22nd. However, we are probably going to be coming to you to move that meeting a week early to October 15th, specifically because we have the South Beach restoration and shoreline access enhancement project coming forward from Public Works. And there's some critical deadlines that they are trying to meet in terms of applications for grant funding for that project. So it is good for the Public Works and the grant team to be able to bring that project forward a little earlier for your consideration in the month. So that would be, rather than the third week of the month, we would be having the meeting the second week of the month instead. That meeting will also probably include our first round of processing of the TRL applications that have been waiting since the moratorium has expired. So over the next several months, how many applications do we have right now, Donna?
We have probably around 25.
So we're going to propose to probably bring those in batches, smaller batches to you, probably around 5. We're going to try 5 at a time to start processing those applications as well under the new regulations.
Since the expiration and what's transpired with the moratorium and on TRLs, did we get an influx of applications? Or what was the list prior, around the same?
No, it was at 20.
Oh, okay.
And we've had probably, I believe it's another 5.
Yeah. And,
No, not really.
and some of those weren't necessarily, I mean, it feels like most of those were connected to the revocation process, that they were revoked, and then they're coming back and applying for a TRL. We've had a
Correct.
handful of those.
There's a couple of those, and then there's a couple of just random people, but I don't think it was affiliated with the ending of the moratorium.
Okay.
So the moratorium was in place, what, roughly a year?
2 years.
2 years.
Okay, so that's still less applicants than we would have seen in that 2-year period of time.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to start bringing those through, like I said, 5 at a time. Right now, Donna is working on just vetting all of those applications to make sure they all still meet the criteria to apply. And then we're going to be processing the pre-hearing inspections that they have to do before the hearing as well. So, but we are thinking that that meeting in October, on October 15th, will be the first batch of applications for your review under the new regulations.
Are we going to go over the new regulations?
Yes.
At
We're-
the
we
next
figure we'll do
meeting?
that, part of what we'll do.
We'll do that on the 17th. too.
Yeah. We'll get everyone briefed up on how we're moving forward.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Thank you.